Welcome back to the ancient world, where heroes face trials that forge their souls and ours. Tonight, we continue the greatest journey ever told, as Odysseus faces temptations so powerful they have destroyed countless men before him. You've traveled with our hero through Pride's fall at the walls of Troy, where his clever stratagem with the wooden horse brought victory, but taught him that intelligence without wisdom can be a curse. You've witnessed betrayal's sting when his own crew opened the bag of winds just as home came into sight, learning that trust must be earned through understanding, not command. You've walked with him through death's wisdom in the shadowy realm of Hades, where the spirits of fallen heroes taught him that mortality gives meaning to every choice, every sacrifice, every moment of courage. The prophet Tiresias showed him the path ahead, but warned him that knowledge of the future is both blessing and burden. Now, with prophecy burning in his mind and hard-won knowledge in his heart, Odysseus approaches trials that will test not just his strength, not just his cleverness, but his discipline. The Sirens wait ahead, their voices promising knowledge so complete it will destroy any man who hears it. Scylla and Charybdis hunger for ships and souls, forcing choices no leader should have to make. And beyond them all, a final test of leadership that will demand the hardest choice any captain has ever made. This is not just a story of ancient heroes sailing wine-dark seas. This is the story of every man who has ever faced temptation and chosen wisdom over desire, sacrifice over selfishness, discipline over impulse. Tonight, as you rest in the safety of your bed, you will learn the deepest secrets of masculine strength, how to resist what seems irresistible, how to choose loss for a greater good, how to lead through love rather than force. The Mediterranean stretches before us, vast and dangerous, beautiful and terrible. Each wave carries the echo of heroes who came before. Each breeze whispers the wisdom of ages. Settle deep into your bed tonight, for this is a tale of temptation and sacrifice, of wisdom earned through loss, and of the discipline that separates heroes from the men who merely dream of being brave. Let your breathing slow to match the rhythm of ancient oars cutting through timeless waters. Feel your body growing heavy as the bronze anchor of Odysseus's ship, steady and strong and ready for whatever storms may come. Close your eyes and let the wine-dark sea carry you toward wisdom that only the greatest trials can teach. Tonight, you become part of the legend. Tonight, their courage becomes your strength. Be calm, be clear, be conscious. Take 3 deep breaths with me now, drawing in not just air, but the strength of every hero who has faced impossible choices. In through your nose, hold the courage of ages. and release slowly through your mouth, releasing all fear of what tests may come. With each breath, feel yourself becoming more grounded, more centered, more connected to the ancient wisdom that flows through every man who chooses discipline over desire. Your breath becomes a bridge between the modern world and the timeless realm of heroes, between the comfort of your bed and the deck of a ship sailing toward legend. Feel your body beginning to settle into the comfort of your bed, but notice too how your spine naturally straightens with quiet strength. Your shoulders broaden, not with tension, but with the quiet confidence of a man who knows his principles and will not be moved from them. This is not the rigid posture of fear, but the relaxed alertness of a warrior at peace. Like Odysseus preparing to face the Sirens, you too are preparing your inner citadel. Starting from the crown of your head, imagine a golden light of discipline beginning to flow down through your body. This is the light of self-mastery, the same light that has guided heroes through their greatest temptations, the same power that transforms ordinary men into legends. Feel it flowing down your forehead, strengthening your resolve, clearing away the fog of doubt and confusion. Down your face, setting your jaw with quiet determination, relaxing the muscles around your eyes as you prepare to see clearly what must be done. This light doesn't make you rigid. It makes you flexible like the olive tree, bending without breaking, strong without being brittle, wise without being proud. Take another deep breath and let this golden light begin its work of transformation within you. The golden light of discipline moves down your neck and shoulders, not creating tension, but building the kind of strength that comes from within. Feel each muscle releasing unnecessary holding, yet notice how a deeper, quieter strength takes its place. Your arms grow heavy and relaxed, yet you can feel the quiet power that lies dormant in your muscles, ready when needed, at rest when peace is called for. Your chest rises and falls in the rhythm of a disciplined warrior at rest. Each breath builds your inner fortress stronger. Each exhale releases what no longer serves you. You are learning what every great hero knows. True power comes not from force, but from the discipline to choose your battles wisely, to act when action is needed, to wait when patience serves better. Feel the warm light flowing down through your torso, strengthening your core, not just physically, but spiritually. This is where your principles live, deep in your center, unshakable as mountain stone, flexible as flowing water. Here in your center, you are becoming a man who can face any temptation and choose what serves his highest good, what honors the wisdom of ages. The light continues down through your hips and thighs, building the foundation of a hero who stands firm in his values. Your legs grow heavy, sinking into the bed, as if they're resting after a long journey through dangerous waters. But within them flows the strength to walk any path that honor demands, to carry yourself with dignity through whatever trials await. Down through your calves and feet, the golden light completes its journey, leaving you completely relaxed, completely at peace, yet completely prepared for whatever trials life may bring. You are ready now to learn from the greatest test of discipline ever faced, ready to receive the wisdom that only heroes can teach. Feel this strength settling into your very bones, this discipline becoming part of who you are. Your mind grows quiet and receptive, like the surface of the sea just before dawn, calm and ready to reflect the wisdom of ages. All the chatter and noise of daily life falls away, leaving only the essential, only what truly matters. Like Odysseus preparing to face the Sirens, you are ready for whatever wisdom this ancient tale will bring to your dreams. You are grounded in this moment, yet open to the adventures that await. In the realm of dreams and heroic testing, you are safe, you are calm, you are ready to learn from the trials of heroes, knowing that their discipline will become your strength, their wisdom will become your guidance, their courage will flow through your own heart. Notice how your breath has become the breath of a hero at rest, steady, controlled, peaceful but alert. You are neither tense with fear nor loose with carelessness. You are perfectly balanced, like a ship with full sails and a steady hand at the helm, ready for whatever waters you must navigate. Feel yourself settling deeper into this state of receptive strength, this disciplined peace that allows you to receive wisdom without being overwhelmed by it. Your mind is clear as mountain air, your heart open as the Mediterranean sky, your spirit strong as the ancient stones of Troy. Breathe deeply and let the greatest test of discipline ever told begin. Tonight, you will learn what it means to resist temptation, not through force, but through wisdom. Tonight, you will discover the secret of choosing sacrifice for the greater good. Tonight, you will understand how true heroes are made, not in moments of easy victory, but in moments of impossible choice. The wine-dark sea awaits. The sirens call from their distant shore. But you are prepared now, disciplined and ready to learn what only the greatest stories can teach. When Odysseus and his men departed the shadowy realm of Hades, their hearts heavy with the wisdom of the dead, they returned first to Circe's mystical island. The sorceress who had once turned men into swine now stood before them with eyes that held the weight of prophecy and the urgency of love. "Listen well, son of Laertes," Circe said, her voice carrying the power of one who speaks with divine authority. You have gained wisdom from the dead, but now you must face temptations that destroy the living. Ahead of you lie the Sirens, whose voices are sweeter than honey, more intoxicating than wine, more seductive than any pleasure you have ever known. Odysseus felt his men shift nervously around him, but he stood firm, his jaw set with the discipline he had learned through years of trials. Tell me, goddess, how does a man resist what he cannot help but desire? Circe smiled, but her eyes remained grave. You prepare, hero. You prepare with wisdom instead of foolish courage, with strategy instead of brute strength. The Siren's song promises knowledge of all things that have been and will be. They will call to your mind, to your curiosity, to your deepest desire to understand. And if you listen, if you truly listen, you will leap from your ship and swim to their island, where your bones will join thousands of others who thought themselves strong enough to resist. The sorceress moved closer, her voice dropping to barely above a whisper. But you, Odysseus, you are cleverer than other men. You will block your crew's ears with soft beeswax, kneaded warm until it seals out all sound. But you will listen. You will have yourself bound to the mast of your ship with ropes so tight that even your strength cannot break them. And when the song takes hold of your mind, when you beg and threaten and command your men to release you, they must not. They must row harder, bind you tighter, until the danger passes. As dawn broke over the wine-dark sea, Odysseus gathered his men and spoke to them with the voice of a leader who had learned that true strength comes not from fearlessness, but from preparation in the face of fear. My loyal companions, he said, his voice carrying across the deck like the steady beat of oars through water. We face today a test unlike any we have known. Not monsters that we can fight with sword and spear, but temptation that attacks the mind itself. Our enemy today is not external. It is the weakness within us that makes us believe we can resist what has destroyed every man who has tried. The crew listened with the respect that comes only from shared hardship and proven leadership. These were men who had followed their captain through hell itself. They would follow him through this as well. Perimedes, bring the beeswax, Odysseus commanded. Eurycleia, prepare the strongest ropes we have. Today we will use our weakness as our strength. I will admit that I cannot resist the Sirens' call, and in that admission I will find the wisdom to defeat them. As the men worked, melting the wax until it was soft and pliable, Odysseus felt a strange peace settle over him. This was what leadership truly meant. Not the illusion that he was stronger than other men, but the wisdom to plan for his own limitations. Other heroes had failed because they believed their strength was enough. He would succeed because he knew his strength was not enough. The wax was distributed, each man taking enough to seal his ears completely. But not Odysseus. He would hear what no man had heard and lived to tell. He would listen to knowledge itself singing from those deadly shores. And he would survive, not through strength, but through the discipline to let his men make choices for him when his own judgment was compromised. The islands of the Sirens rose from the morning mist like a vision from a dream, beautiful beyond description, terrible beyond imagination. The shores were white as polished marble, but Odysseus knew that whiteness came not from stone, but from the bones of countless sailors who had believed themselves strong enough to resist the ultimate temptation. As they drew closer, the crew went about their preparations with grim efficiency. One by one, they pressed the warm wax into their ears until all sound was muffled and distant. They moved like men underwater, communicating through gestures, their eyes fixed on their captain with the intensity of soldiers following their general into battle. Odysseus stood at the center of the ship as Pyramides and Eurycleia bound him to the mast with ropes that cut into his flesh. They tied knot after knot, each one a testament to their love for their leader and their commitment to saving him from himself. As the ropes tightened, Odysseus felt a strange gratitude wash over him. How many kings, he wondered, were loved enough that their men would bind them to save them? "Remember," he said, his voice carrying clearly to his crew before they sealed their own ears. "No matter what I say, no matter how I beg or threaten or command, you must not release me. If I seem to be dying from the bonds, tie them tighter. If I promise you rewards beyond imagination, ignore me. If I threaten you with death, remember that I will be grateful when this passes. Save me from myself, my friends. Show me the love that sometimes must be cruel to be kind." The men nodded solemnly, then pressed the final pieces of wax into their ears. Suddenly, the ship was filled with the eerie silence of the deaf, the strange isolation of men who could no longer hear the wind, or waves, or each other's voices. They rode by sight alone now, trusting their captain's wisdom and their own preparation to see them through. And then it began. At first, it was just a whisper on the wind, barely audible above the splash of oars and the creak of rope. But as the ship drew closer to those bone-white shores, the whisper became a melody, and the melody became the most beautiful sound that had ever graced human ears. 3 figures appeared on the rocky coastline, beautiful beyond the power of words to describe. Their voices rose in perfect harmony, each note crafted to pierce straight through to the deepest desires of a man's heart. But these were not love songs, though they spoke of love. They were not battle hymns, though they sang of glory. They were songs of knowledge, of wisdom, of understanding all things that have been and ever will be. "Come to us, famous Odysseus," they sang, their voices like liquid gold poured into his ears. "Come, pride of the Greeks, and listen to our song. No man has ever sailed past our island without stopping to hear our honeyed voices and learning from us. We know all things that happened on the wide plains of Troy, all the sufferings that gods and mortals endured by divine will. We know all that shall come to pass upon the nourishing earth." Odysseus felt his mind begin to fracture with desire. This was not lust of the body, but hunger of the spirit. They offered him complete knowledge, total understanding, the answer to every question that had ever troubled his mind. What was the purpose of suffering? Why did good men die while evil men prospered? What lay beyond death? What was his destiny? All of this and more they promised with voices that made music itself seem crude and harsh by comparison. His muscles strained against the ropes, but the bonds held firm. His crew rode on, their wax-sealed ears protecting them from temptation, their eyes fixed straight ahead with the discipline of men who trusted their captain's wisdom, even when they could not hear his cries. "Release me!" Odysseus screamed, his voice raw with desperation he had never known before. "Can't you hear them? They're offering us everything, knowledge of all things, wisdom beyond imagination. Cut these bonds, that's an order from your captain." But his men could not hear him. They rowed with steady strokes, their eyes filled with tears at seeing their beloved leader in such agony, but their hands steady on the oars, and their commitment unwavering. Perimedes actually tightened the ropes when he saw how desperately Odysseus was struggling, adding another loop around the mast as Circe had instructed. The Sirens' song grew more insistent, more personal, reaching into Odysseus's deepest fears and desires. "You could know why Penelope truly waits for you," they sang. "You could understand what drives men to war, what makes heroes choose glory over life, what makes the gods themselves weep. All knowledge, all wisdom, all understanding, freedom. Just step into our embrace." But even as his mind screamed for release, even as every fiber of his being pulled toward those voices, a deeper part of Odysseus began to understand what was happening. This was the test, not the test of his strength. He had already admitted he was not strong enough. This was the test of his wisdom in preparation, his humility in accepting help, his love for his men and their love for him. He was learning the hardest lesson of leadership. Sometimes the greatest act of strength is allowing others to save you from yourself. His crew was not just following orders. They were expressing their love for him in the only way that could truly save him. They were giving him the gift of their judgment when his own had been compromised. As the ship moved slowly past the Sirens' island, their voices began to fade. The knowledge they had promised receded like a beautiful dream upon waking. But Odysseus found himself smiling through his tears, because he had learned something even more valuable than all their promised wisdom. He had learned what it meant to trust completely, to love completely, and to be loved in return. The relief of passing the Sirens lasted only until the next trial appeared on the horizon. As his men removed the wax from their ears and untied the ropes that had saved his life, Odysseus looked ahead and felt his heart sink with the weight of leadership's cruelest burden. Before them lay the straits between Scylla and Charybdis, the passage that no ship could navigate without loss. On one side, Charybdis sucked down the sea itself 3 times a day, creating a whirlpool that could swallow entire fleets. On the other side, high on her cliff, waited Scylla, a monster with 6 heads, each with 3 rows of teeth, each hungry for the flesh of sailors. Circe's words echoed in his mind. You cannot fight them both. You cannot save everyone. Choose your loss, Odysseus, because choice is the only power you have left. The crew gathered around their captain, their faces grave with the knowledge of what lay ahead. These were not men who had to be told they were sailing toward death. They had fought too many battles, survived too many trials to need explanations. They needed leadership. My friends, Odysseus said, his voice steady despite the pain in his heart. We face a choice that every leader dreads, the choice between losing everyone and losing some. Charybdis will take our entire ship if we sail too close. But if we hug the opposite cliff, Scylla will take 6 of us. 6 lives for the salvation of the rest. The silence that followed was not the silence of fear, but the silence of men considering the weight of necessary sacrifice. These were warriors who had always known that some battles cost more than others. Some victories demanded prices that could never be fully paid. Perimedes spoke first, his voice quiet but firm. Captain, we follow you. If 6 must die so that the rest might live, then let it be 6 who die as heroes, saving their brothers. One by one, the others nodded their agreement. They were choosing not just to accept the sacrifice, but to honor it, to make it meaningful through their courage and their commitment to each other. Odysseus steered the ship towards Scylla's cliff, his hands steady on the helm, but his heart breaking with each stroke of the oars. He had not told his men which 6 would die. There was no way to choose, no fair method of selection. He could only navigate with skill and pray that when the moment came, fate would choose the heroes who were ready. As they entered the straits, the water around them began to churn and roar. Charybdis sucked greedily at the sea, her terrible hunger creating currents that pulled at their ship like grasping hands. But Odysseus held course, keeping just far enough from the whirlpool to avoid its fatal embrace, just close enough to Scylla's cliff to stay within the narrow band of survivable water. And then, swift as lightning, terrible as nightmares, Scylla struck. 6 heads descended from the cliff like striking serpents, each one seizing a sailor with the precision of divine judgment. Perimedes, who had tied the ropes that saved his captain from the Sirens. Elpenor's cousin, who had volunteered for every dangerous task. 4 others, good men all, fathers and sons and brothers, men who had followed their captain through hell itself. They did not scream in terror. They cried out the names of their comrades, shouts of love and farewell that echoed off the cliffs like battle hymns. They died as heroes die, thinking not of their own fate, but of the men they were saving through their sacrifice. Odysseus watched it happen, his eyes locked on each man's face as Scylla lifted them toward her cave. He could have looked away, but he did not. A captain who orders the sacrifice of his men must witness what that sacrifice costs. He must carry their faces in his memory forever, must remember that leadership sometimes means bearing the unbearable weight of necessary loss. The ship passed through the straits in terrible silence, the surviving crew rowing with tears streaming down their faces, their hearts breaking for their lost brothers. Their love for their captain and each other deepened by the sacrifice they had witnessed. That evening, as the sun set over waters stained red like spilled wine, the survivors gathered on the deck to speak the names of the fallen. In the tradition of their people, they shared stories of courage, moments of humor, acts of kindness that would keep their brothers' spirits alive in memory. Odysseus listened to each story, his heart heavy, but his mind clear. This was what leadership truly meant, not the power to save everyone, but the wisdom to honor those who could not be saved, not the illusion of control, but the acceptance of responsibility, even for things beyond his control. They died as heroes, he said when the stories were finished, his voice carrying across the water like a prayer. They died knowing their sacrifice had meaning. They died surrounded by brothers who loved them. They died saving the men who will carry their memory home. Young Amphius, barely old enough to grow a beard, looked up at his captain with eyes red from weeping. How do you bear it, Lord? How do you live with choosing who dies? Odysseus was quiet for a long moment, looking out at the darkening sea. When he spoke, his voice was gentle, filled with hard-won wisdom. You bear it by remembering that the choice was not between life and death, my boy. The choice was between meaningless death and meaningful sacrifice, between losing everyone and losing some, between despair and hope. He placed a hand on the young man's shoulder. You honor the dead, not by drowning in guilt, but by living worthy of their sacrifice. You carry them with you, not as burdens, but as inspiration. They are part of us now, woven into the story of who we are and who we choose to become. The crew sat in contemplative silence as the stars began to appear, each one a reminder that even in darkness, there is light. They had learned something about grief that night. It need not destroy you if you let it teach you. Loss need not embitter you if you let it deepen your appreciation for what remains. After days of sailing through waters that seemed endless, a new island appeared on the horizon. But this was no ordinary island. Even from a distance, they could see it glowed with a golden light that seemed to come from within the land itself. This was the island of Helios, the sun god, where his sacred cattle grazed in eternal peace. As they drew closer, the cattle became visible on the shore. magnificent beasts with hides that gleamed like polished gold, each one perfect, each one divine. They moved with the slow grace of creatures that had never known fear, never known hunger, never known anything but the gentle warmth of their god's protection. But Odysseus's crew was starving. Their supplies, already low when they passed through the straits, were now nearly exhausted. The men's eyes were hollow with hunger, their hands trembling with weakness. They looked at those golden cattle with the desperate gaze of men who saw salvation grazing just beyond their reach. "Remember Tiresias's warning," Odysseus called out as they made shore, his voice sharp with urgency. "Remember what the prophet told us in the land of the dead. These cattle belong to Helios, the all-seeing sun god. If we harm even one of them, we will never see home again. Better to starve with honor than to feast and lose our souls." Eurycleia, ever practical, pointed to their empty water casks and depleted stores. "Captain, we cannot sail home on empty stomachs. Our men need strength for the oars. Perhaps if we ask the gods' permission." "There is no permission to ask," Odysseus replied firmly. "These cattle are sacred. They are not food. They are tests. Every hero who has ever lived has faced the choice between survival and honor, between what he needs and what is right. This is our test. This is where we prove what kind of men we truly are." But even as he spoke these words, Odysseus could see the doubt growing in his men's eyes. Hunger, he knew, was a counselor that whispered louder than wisdom, a tempter more seductive than any siren. That night, as the crew made camp on the beach, Odysseus felt the presence of the gods more strongly than ever before. The wind that had blown steadily from the west suddenly died to nothing, leaving their ship becalmed in waters smooth as polished bronze. The stars, usually bright in the clear island air, seemed dimmed, as if even the heavens were holding their breath. In his dreams, Odysseus saw the sun god Helios himself, tall and terrible, his eyes blazing with the fire that lit the world. "Son of Laertes," the god spoke, his voice like the roar of flames. "I know the hunger in your men's hearts. I know the temptation that grows stronger with each empty belly. But hear me well. Those cattle are not yours to take. They are the measure of your honor, the test of your worthiness to return home." "Great Lord," Odysseus replied in his dream, "how can I choose between my men's lives and your commands? How can a leader watch his followers starve when food stands before them?" Helios's voice softened, but his warning remained firm. "The choice, hero, is not between life and death. It is between the life that honors the gods and the life that dishonors them. Your men will not starve if they trust in divine providence. But if they choose to feast on the sacred, then they choose their own destruction." Odysseus woke with the god's words burning in his mind. Around him, his men tossed restlessly in their sleep, their dreams filled with visions of golden meat and the satisfaction of full bellies. He could feel their resolve weakening, could sense the moment of choice approaching like a storm on the horizon. He gathered them at dawn, his voice carrying the authority of prophecy itself. "My friends, we are being tested one final time. Not by monsters that we can fight, not by temptations that we can resist through strategy, but by the fundamental choice of who we choose to be. Will we be men who honor the divine order, even in hardship? Or will we be men who take what we want and face the consequences later? But he could see in their eyes that hunger was winning the battle against honor. The final test was upon them, and unlike the Sirens or the Straits, this was a test that each man would have to pass or fail for himself. As the sun rose over the sacred island, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson, Odysseus stood alone on the beach, watching his men prepare for another day of hunger. He could feel the weight of their eyes upon him, could sense their growing desperation, could almost hear the arguments that would soon begin. This was the moment that would define not just their journey, but their souls. Behind him grazed the sacred cattle, beautiful and untouchable, divine law made manifest in flesh and blood. Before him sat his ship, filled with men who had followed him through hell itself, men who deserved to see their homes again, men whose lives he held in his hands. Soon, he knew, the choice would be made, not by him alone, but by each man according to his character, according to what he truly believed about honor and survival, about divine will and human need. The test was no longer his alone to face. It belonged to all of them now. But that is a story for another night, another time when the stars gather to witness the choices that separate heroes from ordinary men. Tonight, you have learned about temptation resisted through wisdom, about sacrifice chosen for love, about the discipline that comes not from strength, but from trust. Rest now in the knowledge that every test you face in life has been faced before by heroes who found the way through. Rest in the wisdom that the greatest victories come not from avoiding all loss, but from choosing what is worth losing for, what is worth sacrificing for, what is worth suffering for. Close your eyes and let the wine-dark sea carry you toward dreams where heroes' choices become your strength, where ancient wisdom becomes your guidance, where the courage of ages becomes your own. The heroes of old sleep now in the peaceful embrace of legend, their choices echoing through time to guide us in our own moments of testing. Their wisdom flows into your dreams tonight. Their discipline becomes your strength. Their love for each other becomes the foundation of your own heroic journey. Sleep well, modern hero. Tomorrow brings its own tests, its own opportunities to choose wisdom over impulse, sacrifice over selfishness, honor over convenience. But tonight, rest in the knowledge that you carry within you the same capacity for greatness that guided Odysseus through the ultimate temptation. The ancient Mediterranean now becomes your peaceful dreamscape, where sirens sing not of temptation, but of the wisdom that comes to those who sleep in the embrace of heroic truth.